Well, I came here in 1959. However, I didn't start driving the bus until 1960. They said you had to be 23, and I was 22. But then after I finished my probationary period, which I think was 90 days then, I found out some of my friends came here 21, but they were Caucasians. So I hollered for those few months seniority I had. And the union was very instrumental in getting my seniority back for me. And I'll never forget old Jack Thomas, my good friend. Jack was in front of me. But when I got my seniority back, I was in front of Jack. Jack couldn't understand that. But to work for Metro was something great for me. Now, I didn't come here with the intention of driving the bus. See, I came here with the intention of working in the body shop. I could fix cars and I could paint cars. And I figured, well, with DC Transit, all these buses running around, I'll never give out of a job. But they told me, they said, well, we can put you to driving the bus. We don't have no openings in the body shop. And after you hear a while there's opening, we'll let you know. Well, 2 years went by, nobody let me know nothing. So I went back to personnel. And they said, well, there's no opening yet. So Johnny Ryan, my good friend, Caucasian, he's in Texas now. Johnny walked up to me and he said, you're going to have to keep driving the bus. He said, because there are no black people in that body shop, and they're not going to let you integrate. So one day he and I went over there on the bus and we just walked through, and he was true, that wasn't none. But then I understood, but I wish they'd told me that in the beginning. I still would have took the job. Coming here from South Carolina, where if you and I worked on the same job, the Caucasian made, say, $1 an hour more than the African American. But when I found out this was union, something I was not familiar with, but I early familiarized myself, and I said, well, regardless to what color I am, I got to make the same money that white man make. So if that's the case, then I'm going to have a good job. And I stayed with my job. So then they offered me the opportunity to go to charter school. And the superintendent said to me, do you think you can learn what's in that book? And I said, your brother's a charter man. He said, yeah. I said, I know I'm much smarter than he is, so I can learn what's in that book. And he told me, he said, we're going to be watching you. So I went to charter school, did fine, and back in those days, you also had to get a hack license to drive a cab. Although we couldn't drive a taxi, but we had to have that hack license to prove that that bus had a BS tag on it, and that was a charter bus. You had to have a hack license to drive that, and you had to know where all those cemeteries and hotels was. So I had a hack license, but I never used it. But then after a while, I was invited to come to training division. And I integrated that place with Tom Basie and Mr. McAmus. And they were good people. And you know, back in those days, now, after I had been there for a while, they would send us out at night to ride with people. In other words, Leroy Bailey is going to be working the Trinidad bus line. You get on at such and such a stop, and you ride with him, and you write a report of what he's doing. You get off at a stop, then they have another bus for you. So in those days, people were trained much differently than they are today. And I'm proud to have had the opportunity to train people. And as a matter of fact, old Bill Leak used to work up in Northern with us. Bill was in a nursing home before he died. And I went in to see Bill. See, Bill got here right on the borderline, 45 years old. He and old Bob White both. But Bill was in that nursing home, and I'd been told that he had Alzheimer's and he didn't know nobody. I walked in the door and he said, Mr. Mack, you still training people? Now he appreciated the job the training division did for him because he had made a good life here. So that was great. And there are many, many things happened. We went to, when I was doing charter work, we went to New York one night. It was 5 buses. We were going to stay overnight. I was the only African American. We got there, and some of the guys were whispering amongst each other because we had to share rooms. So Johnny Ryan spoke up and he said, look, Mac and I are going to sleep in the same room. Y'all don't have to worry about that. So he busted their bubble. See, they didn't want me to know what was going on. So we got through that was good. About a year later, I had to go to Southeast to borrow a bus to go to New York. I had to have a bathroom on it. The only two buses we had with bathrooms in Southeast. And we got together at the meeting place, and one guy told me, he said, you follow me. I'm going to be next to the last bus, you'll be behind me. I said, okay. So one of the operators walked over to me and said, that guy said he's going to run off and leave you. And I said, well, I can read, I can get to New York. And sure enough, that's what he did. Man, he went up that road and he kept going. So I figured, I got a bathroom bus and he don't. I'll catch him up there at the eating place. But he didn't stop at the eating place either. So he went on to, he was going to Coney Island. The lady sitting in the front of the bus said, driver, you ever been to Coney Island? And I said, no. She said, I used to live there. And she sit up and directed me in there and out, which I really appreciated. But there were many little sneaky things done under the table to hurt you. Now, Jimmy Mungalusa, I think he's dead now, but Jimmy got shot on the bus, if you remember, down there on 7th Street. He was going south, I was going north. So I stopped. I don't know what's wrong. I go to help my co-worker out. And Jimmy said, go in my pocket and get my money out. I went in his pocket. He had $5,000 in his pocket. And I put it in my pocket, all that blood and stuff on it, so I washed it up. When he come out of the hospital, I said, Jim, I got that money here, and I don't know whether to give it to your wife or not. He said, you could have. He said, I was getting ready to buy a car, and I was going to pay for it cash. But the point I'm trying to make is everybody was not against everybody. And I met some real nice people at DC Transit, both races, and I appreciated both of them. And I did appreciate working there. And I tried to live a life that people would appreciate me. And I see people now, and they come up and talk to me. There has been many, many times when I thought about I could have got a better job, I thought. But then the seniority had started to rise, so I didn't move. And really, DC Transit and Metro was really good to me. When I made Employee of the Year in 1983, and again in 1996. And at that time, I was told I was the only employee here had made Employee of the Year twice. And Mr. White had just become general manager when I made Employee of the Year in 1983. I mean, the last one. And he told me, he said, you got a good driving record. I'm checking it. He just got here. He said, you got working on 4 million miles without an accident. He said, how many years is that? I said, so far I've gone 31 years without an accident. He said, a chargeable? I said, no accident. I didn't hit nothing, nothing hit me in the last 31 years. And he tickled me. He said, your record's like Carol Ripley, it can't be beat. Well, I would like to know if someone has beat my record now. Well, I think Mr. Smith could tell you that better about that than I could. I went into Georgia and Alaska. That's where we used to turn around. And this gentleman went to sleep on the bus, and I was at the end of the line. And he said, well, you're going to have to take me back to my stop. I said, you got to pay again. And he said, no, I don't pay no more. And I said, yes, you do. And he said, don't no niggas tell me nothing. Well, he and I told the back door off that bus. Smitty can prove that to you. He was the supervisor coming up there. Out in Maryland, where lots of people was afraid to work because of those zones. Fortunately, I've always had a pretty good knowledge of county. So that didn't bother me. I loved working out there, and I could get a good run because the guys wouldn't take them. But I've had many people to get on the bus and say, did they hire you to drive the bus? And I would say, no, they hired me to clean the bus. But the cleaning boy went home today, so I got to drive the bus. But I got to know those people, and they liked it. I've had people get on and dispute the fare. And in those zones, sometimes they may have been right. I'm not sure I was right all the time. But this one woman told me, she said, it's because of me you got your job. I said, did you take tests for me? She said, no. I said, well, you didn't help me in there. You know, just that simple. But I had people to say they did not want to ride with me. Then I had people who would get off other buses and get on my bus. But after a while, I mean, that died down. It took about a year for it to quieten down.